Good morning, Vinay. Welcome to the Leaders and Libraries event. It's a pleasure to have you here. Before we get into the conversation and discuss on this fantastic book that you have chosen, let me introduce you to the audience. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good night, whichever part of the world you are when you're going to be seeing this. You have been listening to almost 25 plus illustrious leaders across the industry from the space of HR, L&D, OD, managing directors, business, talking about a book that has inspired their journey. We have yet another guest today, Vinay Trivedi. We were to have a chat almost a couple of weeks back, but we couldn't. But I'm very happy to have him today here. He is CHRO Tone Tag, a technology company that focuses on customer-related innovation work. It's an amazing work. Please go and take a look at the website, because when he spoke about it, it was far-fetched for me to understand in terms of technology for Indians. But I think it's a first time somebody's doing of this kind, so it's a lovely work. He's somebody who does a lot of work in the space of building young talent. You can also look at the posts that he regularly puts on LinkedIn in terms of talent acquisition and building talent who are making the transition from the college space into the corporate. So I think that's a great handholding that he's doing. He's, as you see, he's definitely very young. He's been awarded as one of the young HR leaders by Type I Economic Times, and he's also on the advisory board of a couple of bodies, and also a coach and a mentor for startups and smaller organizations that are trying to pick up and stay on the pace. So, and above all this and beyond all this, he's also an avid reader. So, pleasure to have him on this event. Thank you so much, Vinay, for coming on. Welcome on board.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate this opportunity to share my views on a book that's inspired. Thank you very much.
Superb, superb. So before I expose the book in a couple of moments from now, let me ask you, how did books and Vinay, these two words, go together, and how long has these been together?
So I'll be brutally honest. It's been a very difficult journey for me and books, actually. I'm not a very regular reader in terms of books. While I do attempt to read books, but I'm not a regular reader for a very, very peculiar reason, actually. For me, what is important and that's sort of also helped me in my leadership style, is if I'm doing something, or if I'm, say, reading something, or I'm observing something, or I'm attending some seminar or something, for me, it becomes very critical to see how I begin to implement at least 2 or 3 things that I've learned from that.
Sure.
Now, what happens is, when I know so many people who read so many books, and they keep quoting books and they keep talking about it. For me, as an individual, I'd like to fully commit to what I've read and see how that implementation helps me progress in my journey. And the book that we're going to talk about definitely has played a very, very critical role in that sense.
Lovely.
So for me, it's the impact that I can create post doing something.
Right.
And that's why I call myself a slow reader, or I call myself not so regular reader. That's how I
Lovely, lovely, lovely. I think you should remove the word slow and start calling yourself as an application reader. That would be a better word.
Possibly, yeah. I had not thought about that, but yeah, that's what it is.
Right. So because you're looking at applying whatever you learn, and that makes tremendous sense, Vinay, because you know what my business model is, and I build up capabilities in leaders through books. And I keep telling everyone that the books that we're talking about, including the one we're talking today, are not the Tinkles and Chanda Mamas of the world. They are authored by such experienced people of 20, 25 years, 15 plus years of experience in writing that book. And they have tools and techniques and templates and methods that can be picked up and applied by a leader if he or she wants to.
Yeah.
Right? Which is what you are also talking about, end of the day.
Yeah.
Right? Because, and it makes tremendous sense.
The problem is, it's not that people are not aware. The problem is people don't apply.
Absolutely.
They're aware. They talk about things. They talk about instances, etc. But when it comes to application at their end, they don't apply as much as they should. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
that's.
Yeah. In fact, when somebody asked me, so when you say you're the book-based leadership consulting house, how do you do it? Do you make people read books? I said, no, I don't make people read books. I help them to transition from a reader of a book to an implementer of a book.
Absolutely.
That's the gap that you're talking about.
Yes.
Fantastic.
And that is why I was so interested to have this conversation when we first spoke.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you, Vinay, how I'm happy to have and talk about this book, because you are the one guest who has picked up this book. Nobody else has picked it. Because I also thought over a time, this book seems to have been a forgotten book. And छोटा book है, पतला book है, ये तो बहुत बचपन में पढ़ते थे. अभी तो बहुत बड़े-बड़े किताब आ गए हैं. We are in the world of Simon Sinek's of the world. Why do you go back to this? Could have been a thought which I was thinking to myself, why nobody picked this? And if you see, I also had not put it as a list of the 20 books in my mail. So when you picked up, I said, wow, Vinay is right. I should have actually put this as well. Yeah. So somewhere in my own head also, this has become बहुत साल पहले पढ़ लिया इसको. During our initial days of starting the career and trying to move up in life, right?
Absolutely.
But honestly, when you chose the book and I went back and read it once again, thank you for making me pick this book and read it almost like after what, 15, 20 years. I said, this is a book that is perennial and eternal and stays relevant all times.
Correct.
Whether you are at an executive level or a first-time manager or even at a CEO level, it is absolutely bloody relevant.
That's right.
Yeah. So thanks for picking that. Now, having said that you are an application reader, I'm going to call you that from now onwards. Tell me, whatever you started reading over a time and you have tried applying it, how has it helped you in your own growth as a leader?
So what happens is, to me, books make me more self-aware. When you need to apply some things or you need to change some things, it's important that you internalize and you become more aware about yourself. You become more aware about what you're trying to do. Books are like a mirror that sort of, suddenly makes you realize, oh, this is how, or this is why it's happening. So for me in this journey, it has always been about how I can become more aware of what I'm doing, why I'm doing, and what is it that I can change because I am more aware. And that one or two things that I keep changing in myself because I continue to become aware is my journey of evolution, where I, keep progressing step by step. And that's how I grow. That's how I learn. So that's my connection with how these books impact.
Beautiful. We had another leader who also spoke about the fact that book does one thing for me, Rajiv. It makes me think and think. Which is what you're also talking about, thinking and then having awareness. And it makes tremendous sense, right? Because I'm just reminded of Socrates' very powerful statement who said that I can always make a man think, but I can never make him do something.
Yeah.
I think this is absolutely powerful, right? Even in this book, you can make 10 people read, but out of 10, एक ने भी जाके इसको अगर apply कर लिया, तो it's a big thing.
Yes.
How many would do is the fundamental question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So many books. So I'm going to ask you this. Why this book, Who Moved My Cheese, as the inspiring book that you have picked up?
We are in a world that is fast changing. You and I have seen transition from BPL televisions with antennas on the terrace to antennas on top of the TV. We've moved from there to bigger TVs than LCDs. We've moved from a pager generation. It used to be very fancy, right? Pagers, and then to a mobile phone where even incoming was charged, to now a generation of smartphones. Okay. We have actually seen that whole transition. So there is so much change that has happened in our own lives in the last 20 years. And the pace of change with technology has actually rapidly increased. Earlier, if a pace of change would have been, say, 20, 30 years, now that is reduced to, say, 5 years or 6 years because, things become obsolete very soon. And in fact, in today's generation or today's era, this book is even more relevant for anybody and everybody to understand how to keep themselves abreast with change. How can they prepare themselves to continuously keep moving and keep changing? So, and honestly, in this generation today, people are so comfortable because of technology and because of multiple things. They're so complacent that they tend to blame everything else for not changing when things happen. So that's why I think this is like a book that's the most relevant in helping change management.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me of the antenna thing, because I remember during those days, I'm sure you also must have done it or seen it. We would go onto the terrace, जब दूरदर्शन नहीं आता, they would turn it, आया क्या, वहाँ से भी छोटी सी आया, थोड़ा घुमाओ kind of days, right?
Yeah.
What we are today is, my God, your phone has become the remote. right?
Exactly.
Where Apple Watch has become to switch on the TVs. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
My daughter doesn't understand that we used to have a ring kind of phone which you have to rotate it maybe 6 times for the PMT number of hours, and she says this is mad.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
for them, the cheese is different. For them, the world is different. For us, our cheese was different and our world was different.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
lovely, lovely book, lovely book. So I'm going to take you through a couple of things that the author has spoken about in this, and we'll touch upon 4 or 5 lessons. Though the book is honestly so deep that you can actually run a 2-day workshop on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
how deep it is.
Yes.
He picks up this lovely character of a mouse, right? And to be very honest, I never liked mouse as an animal. I didn't like it during this book. Also, I should honestly acknowledge. But I started loving that character after I watched the movie Ratatouille.
Mm-hmm.
So when that animation Ratatouille movie came, I said, "Acha, mouse bhi itne pyare ho sakte hain." I never knew that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what makes you think that the simple mouse is a very powerful concept the author is talking about, and why thinking like the simple mouse helps all of us reach our goals?
Rajiv, the biggest disease that the corporate world has today
Hmm,
is to not think in a most simplest manner.
I agree.
If you look at innovation, if you look at a lot of new things that are coming, they are the most simplest and things that people have often ignored because they never thought that we should do things which are simple.
Hmm,
Look at Swiggy as an example, as an idea.
yeah,
Um, if you recollect, if you wanted something from a restaurant that's close by to your house, you would make a phone call to them, place an order. After half an hour, you would go there,
pick it
stand
up.
in line, pick up that order, and come back. Right? A simple problem that had to be solved by just putting a delivery man in between.
Yeah,
Nobody thought about it. So the problem with the world today is, we want to overcomplicate things. We, in our endeavor to try and look intelligent, we downgrade simplicity, and that unfortunately is a bigger problem than
hmm,
anything else.
hmm,
And to think of it, most things that are being solved are the simplest of things. They're not the most, it's not rocket science. Only
right.
rocket science in my mind is the most complex thing that can be solved. Everything else needs very simple solutions. So when I look at you know this whole character of the mouse here, and how very simply they're just trying. You go here, you come back, you go here, you come back, you do this, you do, it's just common sense, and it just helps in getting things done.
Yeah,
That today's generation, you look at, or actually a lot of people, even I sometimes behave in that manner, and then this book comes to my mind, and I'll change my course. But people want to overcomplicate. अच्छा presentation बनाएंगे, we will keep it, we'll add so many data points, we'll do this, we'll do that. They are forgetting the objective in trying to beautify the whole construct of what they're trying to
I
showcase.
agree.
And in the bargain, they lose track of what they started off and where they're
Mm,
ending. Does it
Makes
make sense?
tremendous sense, yeah. It makes tremendous sense because you spoke about Swiggy. I always was wonderstruck of the model of Dunzo. कुछ नहीं है. I can't deliver it. Somebody will come and pick it up and deliver it. And I used to live in the world. My father was the government servant. We used to live in a railway colony. So सरकारी. So we had this bungalow peons. तो हमको कुछ किसी के घर में भेजना तो peon को बुलाएंगे या देखे आप. वो
Yeah,
जाके because we had the convenience of being a सरकारी officer.
yeah,
There's nothing but that on with a price. It is so simple. I can deliver anything anywhere. It's so easy.
correct.
I mean, I wonder कि यार ये strike क्यों नहीं हुआ?
It's the most simplest, right? इसलिए नहीं strike हुआ. Complex होता तो strike होता.
बिल्कुल. Plus, is the need profound? It's absolutely so deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought
No,
these are great ideas.
I'm sure you talk to a whole host of
Yeah.
leaders. Sort of have conversations around how do you do talent management and how do you build leadership, etc., right? You realize that when you give them simple solutions, right, they often falter to follow through or apply, but they expect results out of it. And if it is too simple, they'll say, नहीं यार ये तो बहुत easy है. मतलब थोड़ा कुछ करते हैं ना इसको थोड़ा अच्छा बनाते हैं. In the name of saying let's do something good.
I agree.
they often lose track. So we have, and that's why this book, right? It reminds you that simplicity, common sense definitely guides you to greater good than
I
anything
agree.
else.
I agree. In my career, there was a client where I had made a proposal to the client, and we had one of the four top business consulting houses of the world who also had made a pitch. And this man, one guy liked the entire work that I had presented, but his boss wanted to go with the global brand for the sake of brand, and they had a far more fancier data and all this stuff the way they do. And then I asked the same question: Is it about the PPT being beautiful, or is it about solving the problem that you have on the table? I can
Yeah.
also solve it at a price which is one fourth of what he's offering.
Yeah.
But if you have money as a L&D head and you can spend the money, you want to show it that if you associate, please go ahead. I mean, absolutely fine. Ask my thing is getting the problem solved for you.
Yeah.
It's your call. You want to go with Raji, you want to go with the global guy. That's your call. But what you said tremendously makes sense. Look at the Apple presentations. कुछ नहीं होता है. एक image होता है, एक data होता है. That's it.
Yeah.
And then on that huge screen that just hits you big on your eyes. Huh?
Yeah.
No
See,
graphs, no statistics, no source, and कुछ नहीं.
I mean, people have forgotten. It is PowerPoint, which means that a powerful point that you make. So
Yeah.
it is supposed to be just a point. We have overcomplicated it and we have removed the power part of it and we have just made it into a presentation. Right? I mean, to think of it, it was named also PowerPoint, saying that you make 2 or 3 powerful points and you talk about it.
True.
Right?
True.
People have forgotten, they've just gone into presentation.
Yeah.
So that's why this
I
problem.
agree. Beautiful, beautiful. Lovely, lovely articulation. That takes me to the next thought where the author says that, stop thinking about the cheese too much.
Yeah.
Start chasing them quickly. How do you recommend this for leaders and what is your interpretation of it?
What happens is there's another classic problem of analysis paralysis that we are plagued by, right? We overthink. Sometimes you just have to get things done. You have to just move and start doing it instead of thinking. Right? And also a part of the problem is information overload. Today we live in an era where information is available in abundance. Possibly when computers came and when I used to do my research, I don't know if you also spend time in that, but we would spend time on figuring out which word art format will look good on a printout, or how will this look and look at, right? Because information that time was very difficult, so we would spend time on that. Now, because there's so much information available, people don't know what to use, how to use, and how to let go of that. So from that perspective, it becomes very, 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 very critical for anybody to understand that don't overthink, don't get into this whole mode of analysis paralysis, and start doing things. That is my perspective here.
So, but tell me, I mean, how do I avoid this here? Because we are talking for the context of young leaders, and they are having everything at the tap of the finger. So if you say don't look at information, that's going to be a tough stage. Rajiv, to nahi hoga.
Yeah.
After gyan de rahe ho, it doesn't work. What should we do? There is data, there is information. What should I do amidst that?
So there are 2 or 3 things that young leaders, or any leader for that matter, needs to concentrate on. The first thing is to, every time you think, you're looking at data point, pin it back to what is the objective that you're trying to achieve. What is the end objective that you want out of it? Is it achieving that objective or not? A lot of times when we dive into this whole data ocean, we see a lot of exciting things while we are swimming through it, right? We get excited, let's do this. So that's the time you have to ask yourself, what is it that you as an individual are trying to achieve? So your objective needs to be very clear. At every stage, you have to pin whatever you're doing to your objective. Second, it is very difficult to think in a very, very simple manner. Start training yourself to think simple and not think complicated.
Powerful.
The minute when you start thinking simple, and that's a process, that's a journey. You will start doing things, very, very quickly. So this agile methodology that people keep talking about is actually because you keep moving and you keep thinking simple. You don't have to overcomplicate things. So train yourself to be very simple. Last point, which is in my mind the most powerful one, please use common sense. everyone has been gifted with this fine sense called as common sense that we have forgotten. We don't use it. And sometimes when we have these eureka moments, that's actually a common sense that has prevailed, or, in terms of the better sense of what you're trying to do. So
Yeah.
keep using common sense. It'll help you move in that direction. So it's
Right.
not that I'm saying that don't look at data. I'm not saying that you should, not analyze, or you should not really dissect or do all of that. But these 3 S principles will consciously help you get better quality output.
I agree, Vinay. I mean, all three of them were powerful, but I'm specifically liking the third one because uh, we were the first generation which had one leg in the non-technology world and one in the technology era. So we had our own confusions and all this stuff. Our kids are completely into the iPad, iPhone. Kids, उनको तो कोई tension ही नहीं है. But if you go back to my father, I'm sure it must play to your father and other fathers as well. Whatever they did and the grandfathers did were absolutely intuitive, system one thinking, or like Daniel Kahneman talks about in Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yeah.
It was common sense.
Yeah.
I've seen my father repair a couple of things in the backyard of my house in my village where पानी यहाँ बह रहा है, पानी वहाँ बह रहा है, सिर्फ common sense. They didn't have data. अच्छा कितना एंगल है, कितना डेटा है, कितने कंपनी ने किया, कितने घरों ने लगाया, उसका डेटा क्या बता रहा है, ग्रीन ग्राफ, रेड ग्राफ, nothing. It was simple. मेसन को बुलाओ, common sense लगाओ, the problem is solved.
Yeah.
हम लोग क्या करेंगे? We'll figure out कि how many houses have used this plumber. What is the success ratio of this plumber?
Yeah.
The money that he's asking for versus return on investment. कितना ये सब लगा कि वैसे यार तब तक 10 लीटर पानी और बह गया.
And that's what happens in this also, right? The mouse keeps doing, keeps exploring, you just keep doing. People often, forget that common sense is very powerful. Absolutely. And I am a big fan of using common sense.
Absolutely.
And I keep promoting it to every leader.
I agree. I'll tell you an experience that I had as recent as last month of common sense. In my house, we have a duct area where pipes chalta hai, right? The wall outside was getting moist, which means there was some pani which was leaking in the duct area through some pipe. And I live on the ground floor. I've got 14 floors above me. We are figuring out kahan se pani aa raha hai. The floor was getting wet. We didn't know कि कहाँ से टपक रहा है. तो फिर क्या करेंगे? तो we called the plumber. यहाँ check किया, वहाँ check किया. पानी गिर रहा है. बोले सर कहीं से तो गिर रहा है. We didn't know what to do. So we had one person who was a mechanical engineer kind of a पुराने ज़माने uncle है. So he's worked in government and all that. We called him. बताइए क्या करना है? Very simple. उन्होंने चार्ट पेपर लेके आया, कट किया और प्लम्बर को बोला कि वो नीचे जो बेस है वहाँ पूरा लगा के रखो. जैसे चार्ट पेपर लगा के रखा, दरवाजा बंद कर दिए, पानी टप 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 आवाज आता है जब बूंदें चार्ट पेपर में गिरती हैं. एंड ही सेड जहां ज्यादा गिरेगी दैट प्लेस विल बिकम रियली वेट, आपका फटेगा चार्ट पेपर. मतलब हमको मालूम है कि यहाँ पे सबसे ज्यादा पानी डेंसिटी गिर रहा है, जहां पे कम बूंदें गिर रही है, सिर्फ आपको डॉट्स दिख रहा है, आपको मालूम है यहाँ पे ज्यादा पानी नहीं बह रहा, और सॉल्व करो. आई सेड दिस इज कॉमन सेंस टू द कोर.
Yeah.
Then he said solve कर. Then we got epoxy coating करवाया, सब कुछ करवाया. प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करने के बाद he said वापस चार्ट पेपर लगाओ, 2 दिन देखेंगे टपक रहा है क्या पानी. टपकने की आवाज बिल्कुल नहीं आई और चार्ट पेपर was just dry, which means problem is solved.
Absolutely. If to think of it, we have somewhere forgotten that common sense needs to be used more often. We are not even promoting that culture.
Yeah. And it comes very intuitively, right?
Absolutely. Because what is happening is we are not thinking simple. We are always thinking complicated. Oh, how do we look at plugging this? Oh, kahan pe hoga? Kya hoga? Kaise hoga? We are forgetting that, okay, let us understand if we can do something to establish ki kahan pani gir raha hai, like what you're saying. It's a simple thing. People, fail to understand that. We'll be looking at all the walls and we'll be looking at all the pipelines and so many things we'll do. So that's a problem. It's a genuine problem.
I know. Thanks for bringing this. It makes tremendous sense, especially for youngsters, guys who are listening to Vinay and to me having a chat on this, guys. Figure out, go back to that intuitive capability that God has gifted you with. Somewhere because you're not using it enough, वो चाकू की धार जैसे, I think it has become rusted.
Yeah.
Start using it more, it becomes sharper and sharper and sharper. And the more that intuitive thinking of yours becomes sharper, you can always use this system 2 thinking, which is data, to kind of make it far better and good.
Absolutely.
Tremendous value. Vinay. Thanks for bringing this up here. I'm happy to have a conversation on a book which is so simple. Others were also simple, but they had a little more of lofted, heavy stuff. But this is absolutely very simple. Yeah. But tell me, the author says that the biggest cheese does not last forever. Okay, now I got two questions. What do you mean by this cheese in your interpretation? Cheese hai kya? And when he says does not last forever, what is the message to us?
Yeah. So, this is like, we are not eternal in this world, right? We are here for our life expectancy is what, 70, 80 years, 85 years, depending on how your lifestyles have been. But we plan everything as if we are eternal. It's the same logic in every sphere of life. When the author tries to say this, that even the biggest thing will not last, he's simply telling that please consider everything as finite and finite, right? You are not going to keep getting resources. You will exhaust. You eventually have to move to a newer place. This is also in some sense it connects to the marginal diminishing law of utility. In a sense that sometimes you also get done with things and you want to move on. Sometimes things get done and you have to move on. So there are two things that it implies. So the author simply says that over-dependence, over-reliance, becoming complacent because of that, assuming that because the source is infinite, you don't even think of anything else, is a bigger thing. So you have to assume that at one day this is going to end. What it does to you is it constantly keeps a reminder that you have to change when this ends, or you have to keep in mind that this will end. Instead of, oh my God, this ended. Now what am I going to do? How am I going to get food? The author beautifully articulates that also in the book. So we have to look at everything from a perspective that this is not permanent. And we keep talking. I mean, I'm sure so many people keep telling this, that change is the only thing permanent, my friend. We keep talking about it, but we forget that when it comes to us, we react in a very different manner. But very effortlessly, we'll borrow that dialogue to people saying that change is the only constant, and sometimes we don't even want to change our chair. I mean, if somebody makes my chair and somebody makes adjustment with that, I will get furious in office when I come saying that who's meddled with my chair, right? But we tell people that you have to, be ready for change. So this is that thing that he says that nothing is permanent. That's what he's trying to explain in a deeper manner.
I think beautifully said. But I'm going to ask a little more on the same point before we move to the next question. Help the young minds to understand, Vinay, that. So let's take a step back. When I think that this is permanent, or this is eternal and going to be long lasting, or is going to be infinite, does it give me a comfort or does it give me an anxiety? So what you're saying is you may get anxious, you may get worried, is what you said. When you start thinking it as temporary and finite, does it make it comfortable in our head and settles anxieties in our head?
No. In fact, the fact that you're telling yourself that it's temporary or it's finite and it's not infinite trains your brain to look at change or accept change faster. There are two ways you can accept change, right? And the book also talks about it in some way. One is that you wholeheartedly accept it, start enjoying change, start doing things in that manner. Second, you get pushed to it, eventually you have to change, right? The second one is more painful. The first one is right. It's less painful because you're prepared. So this whole thing also is about that. What happens is it will not let you become complacent. It will not let you overthink of what happens if it finishes and all of that. It will prepare you saying that, okay, I know it'll get over. When it gets over, I know what I have to do. Let me start thinking what I will do when it gets over instead of, worrying about what will I do if it gets over, kind of a thing. So it helps you from being complacent. It also helps you in your mind to constantly have a reminder that this is not permanent, this is not permanent, this is not permanent. So when that actually thing happens, it's easier for you to move on.
I think it makes sense what you said, Vinay, because I go back to the first thing that you started the conversation, that books gives you awareness. Now, this kind of an awareness kind of really settles down a lot of things in the head and kind of calms you down, right?
Yeah.
You're not perturbed, you're not fluttering around when things happen. And when the change comes, you're people who are reacting, going fluttered off, and you are somebody who's picking up absolutely calm and calm. Acha, kya ho gaya? Bomb gir gaya na? इतना बड़ा गड्ढा बन गया ना, मट्टी लेके आओ, भर दो उसको, why are you jumping around?
Simple.
Whereas you'll have some people, bomb गिर गया, bomb गिर गया, bomb गिर गया.
हाँ, correct. अब क्या होगा, क्या करेंगे, ये तो पूरा चला गया, मैंने इतने साल की मेहनत मेरी पानी में चली गई. There are so many things that comes to your mind, right?
Yeah.
Which is the two ways of change, right? One is wholeheartedly, one is being pushed into it.
Yeah.
So the pushed into it is always difficult, but eventually change is constant. That we know, so you know that you have to move that path.
Yeah.
How your acceptance levels are will decide if you do
Both
it.
of them are going to get sucked by it any which ways.
Yes. So that's and I keep telling this to people. Do you want to change wholeheartedly, or do you want to be pushed into it? Either ways, change is going to happen. So you decide how you want to take it. And a lot of times people also realize that, yeah, if anyways it's going to happen, why not accept it and move gracefully instead of, putting so much pressure in my head. And some people find it difficult and then they have to be pushed to it. So that's how it sort of works.
I know. I agree. In fact, you know what, this nothing is permanent. Just to kind of go a little outside the conversation, Vinay. And you have a great interest in mythology. We spoke about it last time, and a little bit of spiritual inclination. I also share that. In the last 2 years, besides COVID that has affected, I have seen around 20-25 deaths in the last 2 years. That's quite a number.
Yeah.
And all these are around my loved ones, friends, circles, families, extended families. And people who are in the age of 35 to 55, I've seen. I mean, I've got people at 70, 71, put them in lane, because they've lived their life. But I've seen young for multiple reasons. And then, as crazy as I chatted with the person 3 days back, and today morning I get the news the man is not available anymore.
Right.
I lost a cousin yesterday morning. Okay, he's 65, but I lost him. The point is, these incidences the last 2 years has made me a far more mature person, thinking that everything is bloody temporary on this planet. Why are we thinking of everything to be permanent and breaking everything as permanent solution? Nothing is permanent. So somewhere I'm able to relate what you're saying from a spiritual perspective as well.
Yeah. No, the other problem, Rajiv, that I see in the youngsters is they have been shielded and guarded way too much by their parents, which is actually harming them. They have never been exposed. I remember, and it's actually how you deal with change, right? When I was 8 years old, 7 years old, is when my 8 years when my grandfather passed away, and we were made to do every ritual that we were supposed to do because my parents believed that you have to go through this pain to understand and become mature, that when it comes, how you have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So I've been seeing deaths from the age of 8, and I've seen deaths very closely. Now, what happens is, and why do I bring this example here since you brought it up? That's a very poignant thing to think of when you lose someone close to you.
Yeah.
But that also helps you deal with change
It does.
very gracefully. And I have spoken to so many people who have said, oh, I've never seen death in my life. My parents never took me. They always kept us away from it. So we are very scared to understand it. And that also translates to, oh, we're very scared for change management. Oh, we have been shielded, so we want our comfort zones. We want to take safe steps. We don't want to take the inclined ones. We want to go a straight line. Result, our reward expectation is inclined, but our journey has to be straight line, right? That's another dilemma that people go through. So that's a problem which needs to be addressed. And anybody who's listening into this, please understand that it's very critical that you start going up to expect things to move up. You start going straight, things will not move up.
Absolutely. I mean, though this is not within the template of conversation, but it's very interesting and powerful, Vinay, because I'm 42 and I'm a father of a 13-year-old boy and an 8.5-year-old daughter. And I grew in a village. I have walked barefoot. I've done labor work. I've done a lot of that of mine. I've had a fairly very comfortable life given by my father. But I see the current community in which I live, which is the condominium kind of a thing. The boy and the girl, kids who go and play outside, they remove their chappal and they want to play in the grass, they want to play in the concrete space. The mother comes running, chappal pehen lo. I'm like, wow, why would somebody want to do this? Because when I grew, एक हवाई चप्पल होता था, हम लोग सब फेंक के मट्टी में खेलते थे, कीचड़ में खेलते थे, क्या हो जाता? We never had any germs issue. We built immunity like crazy because I remember I was in a Kendriya Vidyalaya school. And we had this null जिसमें से पानी बहता था. That null was a rusted null. उसमें से पानी आता था. उसमें से bottle में भर के पानी पीते थे. Today, my body is immune. I can take any crap from the external world. But I've got today parents who Bisleri पानी ही पिलाते हैं बच्चों को. Look at the kind of illness you're
Right.
creating with chai. I mean, how are you going to fight it? And then
Yeah.
you Amazon में जाके you order immunity tablets. I mean, it's crazy. You're not building the person for the change, isn't it? धूप आ गया, बेटा तुम अंदर हो, धूप है. 2 बजे खेलने मत जाना, 4 बजे बज रहा है. क्या हो जाएगा 2 बजे? 2 बजे जाके खेलो, bloody vitamin D बॉडी के अंदर आ रहा है यार. It's good for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't
It's
think
very
of that.
unfortunate. We are raising a generation, and when we spoke last time also, right? When I keep saying that, I follow a lot of Indian roots, and from attire to thinking and all of that. It's actually trying to figure out how we've survived 5,000 years of civilization,
Absolutely.
right? What we are doing is in blindly aping a certain Western culture. Even immunity tablets also is a part of the Western culture. And we tell ourselves, so what? Everybody in the world is having it. The fact is, you never needed to have it at the first place, but you are, because you've adopted to a lifestyle that's not required of you.
I agree
So,
there. I agree.
and that's true with change management, and that's true with your cheese. That's true with why people cannot take change. That's true with why people cannot think in a simple manner. And it actually reflects, your upbringing reflects in how you're dealing with things in your life, professionally, personally. So it goes back to your upbringing.
It does, yeah, it does. I mean, I think I agree to you, and I don't want to sound generalizing, and both of us, to the listeners, not to pinpoint on anybody, but I think parents also have to become far more matured of young children
Yeah.
to just let go of your children. Allow them to go through all that we went through and build that immunity within themselves. Let them not get paranoid.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are doing no good by getting paranoid.
Yeah.
बच्चा दरवाजे तक चला गया तो पीछे पीछे भागता है, कहाँ गया मेरा बच्चा, कहाँ गया मेरा बच्चा.
I mean, if a teacher scolds, they go and fight in school, saying that how dare you scold my child? I haven't done
Guru
anything.
has the right to scold the child, yeah.
I mean, what are you doing? It's such a disservice, because that person, when he or she comes to the workforce, and when he sees tough bosses, he or she is just not able to survive.
They can't
And
take it
he
because they've
blames
not
the
seen
whole
any
system.
external person being allowed to tell them anything or reprimand them.
Yeah. So that's a problem in that person's professional journey. So it actually has a long-term impact.
It does, it
With these things.
does. I think these cheese have to be changed and moved here. You're right. I completely agree. Parents have a huge responsibility in doing this. I
Yeah.
completely subscribe to that.
Yeah.
Lovely. So let's move to the next one. So as he says, this cheese is not permanent, and he also says, "Don't worry, there's always a new cheese to be found." How did you work on this in your life, Vinay? Give us an instance of something where you found the new cheese and you
So
applied this book.
so I'll sort of draw something and try and show my what has helped me finding new cheese, and how I've sort of constantly sort of done that. Um, I if you can see this.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
So this is point. There's a point here and there's a point here, right?
Yeah.
Uh, versus a graph which is like this. Point here, go down.
Yeah.
Now, for all the engineering students or people who understand even economics, these are points of inflection.
Correct.
Points of inflection has been like the biggest cheese mover for me. And I actually take change head on. I mean, I don't like complacency. I don't like comfort zones. I want change in my life. So what I've done in my career also, and I very rarely talk about my career and how I've moved my career, because I think it should not be relevant anyways. But since this is a conversation about that, I'll sort of talk about it. I've always used inflection points as my points to grow further. So in my journey, I've always I've taken up roles that are not very attractive, that people would not want to take, that people call themselves saying that, oh, you're not doing strategic work, you're doing transactional, you should think of more strategy, etc., etc. So my philosophy has been to take roles that people don't take.
Give an example.
I'll give you that also. I'll give you two examples there also. Second, to consciously look at different industries. Right. And third, to move out when you're at your peak, when you're at your pinnacle of success. Move out there and make that as the bottom point of your next role, because then your next role starts off at where you have peak. That suddenly makes that change, go higher up. So there was this. I was doing very well in one IT organization. In fact, they had offered me to move to Copenhagen and head HR for the Nordic region. And to my mind, I said that, oh, that's very transactional as work, and I don't think I want to go there. So they were shocked. They said, "You are getting an on-site opportunity." This is way back in 2011-12. And in HR, you're getting an on-site opportunity. You are declining to go on-site. To my mind, because I'd already worked in London and had seen the kind of transactional work that happens a couple of years back. So I said, I know the kind of work that happens. Growth story is here in India. And I know that that's not what will give me growth story, because those are mature economies. They behave very differently. They were, first of all, shocked that I rejected an on-site opportunity. And because I was at my peak, they thought that, oh, he's, not understanding what's coming and what's hitting and all of that. So that's one example where I said that what does not make sense, sometimes you have to take that call. It was very tempting. I mean, it's very tempting for anybody, right? Imagine I'm
It is. Yeah. It's tempting enough to not just let go of.
Right? So everybody, we've lived that dream. To my logical mind, what is the impact I'm going to create? What is the kind of work that I'm going to be getting to do? And if it is transactional, even if I'm getting, truckloads of money and a global exposure, it's not going to do any good to me as an individual. So I declined that opportunity at a peak. Then I moved to an opportunity in a bank. So this will take like 2 or 3 minutes. I'll try and wrap it up in
please,
2 or 3
minutes. Don't worry, you have time, don't worry.
So there was a role that got created at a bank. They had an academic program. They had tied up with universities here in Bangalore, which is Manipal and Amity in Noida. The model was very simple. The bank would hire people, send them to these universities. They do a 1-year full-time postgraduate program in banking, which is tailor-made to meet or suit that bank's requirements. And then once they successfully complete, they get deployed back into the bank. Right? It's a very simple program, very, very, powerful in my mind program. So what used to happen is the bank was not in a business of running an academic program. The university that is doing a program for specifically the bank did not care, how these people are trained, because they knew they had got a assured placement and they're getting their assured income, revenue, etc. So for them, there is no imperative saying that, oh, can we learn from the bank? Can we do this? Can we do that, etc., etc. For the bank, it's more of, oh, we have told the university, they'll give us ready-made products. Obviously, when the products came out, they were not even half ready-made or half baked. The problem there was the bank started sending a lot of senior leaders to the campus to do guest lectures. Saying, why don't you go and meet these students? They're all, our young bankers, and they're going to come, etc., etc. So when they would come here, they would find 150, 200 people suited, booted, sitting in an air-conditioned classroom, perfectly, looking smart from a banking perspective. These leaders are what I call, they get the Masiha feeling, saying that, oh, I'm the king and you're my disciples. They've never seen 150, 200 youngsters. These are 25, 28, 30 years experience in the banking industry. And they're like, oh, I'm meeting these youngsters. So then they're like, aur bachcho batao, kya problems hai aapko? I'm here to solve all your problems. What will these kids tell us problems? Sir, हमारा hostel में खाना ठीक नहीं मिलता है. हमको यूनिफॉर्म दिया है, वो यहाँ से टाइट हो रहा है, वो कोई रिपेयर नहीं करने वाला है. हमको ऑल आउट दिया था, लेकिन उसको रिफिल नहीं दे रहे. हमें बहुत तकलीफ हो रही है यहाँ पे. These guys would go back and feed into the HR head of the bank, saying that, oh my God, what kind of a program you guys are running? They don't have basic facilities. They don't have things that are there to take care of them, etc., etc. Whereas the reality was, they had fancy flats as hostels. They had like, air-conditioned classrooms, etc., etc. It was there. Food is, very, very decent. But people want to crib and people want to, this thing. Bank, instead of thinking, why is this happening? They thought, why don't we hire somebody who will go and tame the university and set right these food issues and mosquito issues and all of that. So this role got created. And when this role came to me, saying that I was an HR business partner. Can you come and do this, hostel? A lot of people said, see, banks work in a very, very centralized manner. If you understand how banking.
Yeah, of course. I work in banking industry. I know it.
So they work, head office is where everything happens and all that. And this role I had to work out of a campus. The bank had never got a role like this before, etc., etc. Now, when this role came to me, I saw tremendous potential of saying, oh my God, you're actually creating a talent pool of young, passionate bankers that can actually, come into the bank with a lot of energy. They can replace a lot of high cost resources with low cost resources. This is my thought in my mind. Bank's mind, my KRA was खाना ठीक हो गया, रोटी ठीक से मिलती है, मच्छर वच्छर का प्रॉब्लम चला गया, यूनिवर्सिटी ठीक से पढ़ा रही है नहीं पढ़ा, they only wanted that objective. So when this role came, it was a very unattractive role. I saw that this role could really, transform into a great source. And against everybody's advices, I actually took up that role. When I went there, for me to solve the problem, it just took 15 days. The main problem that the bank had expected. I did a session with the students and asked, what are you guys here for? They said, we are here for a job. I said, excellent. Not only what are your problems? So they started telling problems. I said, are these problems going to help you get better role in the bank? They said, no. I said, now what are your problems? No, sir, these are not problems. These are just temporary. But if you could get us better roles, we would be very happy. So I said, now will you tell these problems to when seniors come, or you'll tell other problems? No, when seniors come, we'll talk of what roles you can give us, etc. All I had to do is use my common sense and say, boss, what is the objective? And which I mentioned also, how is this problem pinned to the objective and how it can help you? So when I did that in a very simple manner, suddenly the whole, this thing changed. We actually saw the program grow from 150, 200 people to 800 people in a span of 1.5 years, just because we could set a certain expectations, right? Even the bank never thought I could do this, or somebody sitting outside the central office could do this. So why I quote this example is because the most unattractive role. Can you imagine go to hostels and check if things are okay or not okay? I mean, it's not even a role an HR would want to take up, right? Very unattractive role. But when you see that you can transform that, how you work towards transforming that. For me, it was a learning. I'd never done an academic or a training program. I'd never done learning in my life. But I knew that common sense should do these things. Another very interesting thing that I did using common sense in this program was I met the faculty members. They said, oh, and all those faculty members are ex-bankers. GM, DGM level, public sector banks, very, very senior. You know how the public sector, very senior people. So, and I was all of 26, 27 when I took over that program. So for me, they were actually my grandfather's age, to whom I was talking at 65, 66, 68. So I said, what are you guys teaching them? Oh, we are teaching banking to them. We know how banking works, etc. Said, what are you teaching about my bank to them? Oh, that they learn in internship. I said, what is the point of doing a program if they have to learn everything in internship? Why are they here? No, that is how the program is planned. We teach them banking. They get practical exposure in internship. That's how it is. Academics and practical that gets mixed, etc., etc. I said, nothing doing. You identify a branch close to your house. I am sending you to an internship program in my bank. I want you to go and learn what is not happening that should happen and how my bank functions. They said, how can you tell us this, sir? What is this you're telling? This is not acceptable to us. And that's the first time I heard in my life. I said, nothing doing. As the program head, I'm telling that I want you to do this. Please do this, and then we'll see how this works. They said, we don't agree to what you're saying, but customers always right. Whatever you say, we will reluctantly do it. So I planned their branch visits. So we spread across all the branches. I'd inform them, etc., etc. Created a whole immersion program for a week. After 1 week, when they came back, they all wanted to meet me and talk to me and share experience. The first thing they told is, we never thought we could learn at this age, sir. Thank you for sending us. We know so much of your bank now. We will tell everything to your students, and your students will tell everything to the seniors, and that's how we can grow the program.
Which is the purpose of the entire program, right?
So all I did was common sense, right? Change, right? I said, I moved their cheese in that sense, where I asked them to find a newer cheese, and it just worked brilliantly. Right? So yeah, that's how I believe as inflection points. I take on roles that
Beautiful, Vinay. I mean, round of applause from my side for doing this. I'm so you can see it in my face. I'm so happy to talk to somebody who is just using common sense to bloody solve corporate issues, which is so nice. बहुत साल हो गया ऐसे सुन के, so I'm very happy. Thank you for doing this. On the morning of today. Thank you so much, Aras. It's just making me think. Actually, it made tremendous sense. I like the inflection points of yours. I think for youngsters, it's a very powerful learning here. that any inflection is an opportunity for the further growth.
Yes.
Yeah, and if we look at that and take that and not the sinusoidal that you kind of showed
Yes.
up and down, then I think they would never get stuck with the current cheese and they'll keep finding the new cheese like the most keep doing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it
Exactly.
it makes tremendous value, tremendous value. That takes me to the next question, which says that dare to move in a new direction, which is
Yeah.
what the author also talks about, which is what you did, no?
Yeah.
So you gave this example that you dared to move something. How did the young mind get that daring within them to move into the new direction? Because the new direction is going to be unknown. It's going to be scary. I don't want to see failure, so pata nahi kya hone wala hai. And anyway, I'm happy in my current zone. With all that, how do I push my mind? Because for me, everything is in the mind, right? If I'm going to push this and make this needle shift here, physical shift to ho hi jayega. Issue is ye needle shift karwana. What should the young mind do? Could you give us two things?
So, learn, unlearn, and relearn is something that I, constantly follow as a mantra to help me maneuver in these changes. And I'm not going to mince any words, and I'm not going to say that, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this to, go ahead. Change, if you have to do this, it's a very difficult thing, right? It's a choice you have to make. Now, what deters you or what stops you from making those choices? A, fear of failure. B, moving out of comfort zone. C, thinking that is it going to help you strategically grow in your career, right? These are three very critical things that will stop people from making those changes. In my this thing, and today, as I mean, I've spent 2 years as a CHRO now, and a lot of my colleagues and friends who did a lot of strategic roles are still doing strategic roles.
Right.
And I've moved from, I've transitioned from individual contributor to team player to becoming a campus head to becoming talent acquisition head to becoming a CHRO, because I kept moving my cheese and I kept finding new cheese, right? Those people, they were very happy with their cheese. So they're still there and still trying to see what they can do and how they can do. Nothing wrong in it. I mean, it's a choice, right? And change management should be a choice. And if you are worried about fear, right? I keep, jokingly, I keep saying this, dar ke aage jeet hai. The reality is that the day you start telling yourself, so what if I fail, right? It'll help you deal with failures.
I agree.
When you keep telling yourself that, oh my God, what if I fail? You will definitely fail and you will definitely not want to change. The day you tell yourself, so what if I fail? I'll try something else, which is what in this book also, the mouse keeps doing, right? So what if I didn't find cheese today? Again, tomorrow I'll go and look at it somewhere else. Again, tomorrow I'll go and... So that attitude of this book, honestly, has really helped me. So I look at failure as learning. And I keep telling myself, if I don't fail, I'm not learning enough. If I don't fail, and I've really done a lot of things because of that thought process. Yeah. And I have surprised myself with the results. So fear of failure, you have to consciously tell yourself, so what if I fail? It'll help you sort of maneuver, right? Don't overthink on, is it strategic? Is it going to help? Is it going to... Because in a career span of say 25, 30 years of your working life, you ought to be doing all the roles to become a good leader. If you're not doing all the roles, how will you tell when you become a leader what is to be done? I also, very strongly believe, and on campus, I used to jokingly tell this to the students as well, that, there can only be one Gunda. And here I am the Gunda. I would tell that to the students. There are 800 kids who are, there in a hostel. So that philosophy, sort of, helps me in, not thinking of strategy all the time, right? And the third thing, that I mentioned was, when you keep overthinking and when you keep, saying, oh, how do I do this? How do I do this? What will happen? 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 Right? You will not lead to anywhere.
Yeah. You will stay there. The cheese will stay there. Everything will stay there.
Yeah. I'll tell you a very, very, it's slightly off, but it'll be very interesting for the
The
listeners
listeners.
of how even strategy sometimes helps. So, and this is again to the banking program example that I'm telling. So we used to run this whole admission program, and we had to attract students. I would get some 10,000 applications, 8,000 people would come to write a test. I would roll out offers to 2,000 people, and 800 would join out of that. So it's like a huge funnel that we used to create. So I used to, think, how do I communicate to these people? Because we are not like an educational institution, right?
Correct.
So to communicate large scale, we have to communicate to them saying, this is your loan process. We have to communicate saying, this is what you have to go to the branch and do. This is when you have to come to Bangalore. This is how you have. So there's a whole host of communication that used to happen. So what happened is, I like, how do I understand whether they're understanding my communication or not? Okay. And when people talk of big strategies, I use common sense. If I have to understand what is going through, I have to be a part of them.
Correct.
So I went on to Facebook and I started browsing groups that get created before every admission process. And they were creating WhatsApp groups and they were creating all of this. I told one of them that, oh, I'm coming from Lucknow to Bangalore. I also want to be a part of this WhatsApp group. I'm also a student. They added me as a student on that group, not knowing that I was the head of the program. For 2 months, I was on that group listening to all the nonsense that, would happen. So sometimes every time we send an email, this group becomes active. What do these people think? In 2 days, we have to arrange money. They think money comes on the tree. They think this can happen. They think, how, people put gossip and crib. My objective was not to judge them on that. But my intention was to see if my communication is going right. If I have to correct any communication, I would use that group to correct communications. And whenever something goes off track, I will release another communication saying that maybe there is confusion. This is what you need to do. It actually helped me. Good. On the day of induction, when I was addressing the whole batch, right? I sort of, called out a few names. They all got up and they were wondering how come I know and all of that. Then I wrote my mobile number on the notice board. And I told them, please save this number. And then they all saved this number. Then I said, this WhatsApp group, can you please check if this number is saved? When they opened the group and they realized that I was there in that group, they realized that, oh, we can't do shit here. Now, why am I giving this example is, actually, it's not to showcase how I got in and what fun I had, but it's more of how you use common sense to help people and also drive messages strategically. Right? So yeah, I just remembered that.
Thank you. That was lovely. Lovely story. Lovely one. So you have given a lot of message to young minds. Still, I'm going to close this conversation with the last question. 2 laser sharp advices to the young minds. I will take the right from you with your permission to give one on your behalf. Start using common sense is the first advice. What is the second one, Vinay?
So definitely start using common sense. It definitely helps you. Second, do not fear change. Please look at how you can keep changing. Because if you're not changing, you will only become someone who keeps cribbing. You have these one set of people who they have the best of things, but they'll keep cribbing, oh, life is unfair to them. This is not happening to them. That is not happening to them. We wanted to do this. We are not able to do this, etc., right? It only happens because you fear change, right? Stop fearing change. If you can do inflection point methodology in your life, that is, when you are doing very well, you choose something that you've never done, become at the bottom, and then grow from there. It'll definitely give you a great push in terms of your growth in your life.
Beautiful. So guys, the inflection point is interesting because it gives you a chance to look at multiple things that you can do in your career. And when you become the CHROs or whatever role that you become, you will be seen as somebody who has handled multiple things of knowledge here. You can go and add value as a leader there, as against somebody who's just doing one thing and 2 things. That's a great advice from Vinay. 2, common sense through this entire journey of inflections. And 3, for you to go through these inflections, be ready for the change. I think very powerful 3 inputs. Thank you so much, Vinay, for coming on and chatting so simply and so how do I say grounded bolu kya bolu pata nahi. I'm trying to figure out a non-management word here, but that's tough. But it made tremendous sense here because you actually got that उड़ती balloon में बांध के गांड बांध के जमीन पे खड़ा कर दिया आपने. Because half of us we are struggling in figuring out that किधर उड़ रहा है balloon, किसको पकड़ूं किसको छोड़ूं.
That's right.
That's because of that management and jargons and non-commonsensical things. But once you move into a commonsensical mode, you can catch every balloon and tie it to the bloody ground and figure out कि कुछ हो सकता है. Thank you so much. It was a lovely conversation. I completely enjoyed this simplistic conversation on this simple book, yet a very profound one. I hope you had a good time.
I did. And thank you again for thinking I'm worthy to share my experience and help people. Really appreciate it. And thank you very much once again, Rajiv.
Thank you, Vinay. I'm happy you could do this today. Look forward to meet you sometime as things open up. You have a
Definitely.
good day.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.